Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm excited to have you here today. If you have been following along throughout the course, you've pretty much finished the same lessons, the same material that I teach in my classroom. And you have enough knowledge and skills that by now you should be able to build some pretty cool games. And I hope you have taken the time to do that. And I hope you've also shared those links with me so that I could check out your games as well, because I love to see what people make using these skills. Okay, so with all of that said, there's still more that I want to show you guys, all right? What we're going to be looking at for the next several videos is extensions. Extensions are essentially code that is written by other programmers like you and me, where they've created functions to do certain tasks that might be pretty difficult to code on their own. So they're a lot like shortcuts, but they give us the great ability of making our games look really cool or do some really cool things without having to do a lot of coding. I should reword that. They allow us to do some really great things without having to do too much coding, because someone else has already done the majority of the hard work for us and has shared their work with us. That's what extensions are. They're functions written by other coders that they've decided to share. So today's video, we're going to be looking at animating character movements. We're going to look at the simple, straightforward way of doing it with the code that we already have. And then I'm going to show you the extension that I always use when I do character animation, because I find it more efficient, easier to use, and less buggy. So we're going to look at both sides of that. And I do want you to follow along with me so that you can see and compare and contrast the two techniques, okay? All right, so to get started, as always, make sure you're signed in. And we are going to look for our old program, the tile map program. If you don't see it right here, remember you can also go to view all to see all your projects. But we're going to go to the tile map program. So this is the first program that we made with tile maps, where we built a large map for our character to explore. So we have this large map for them to explore, but as you look at the character, he's really just gliding throughout the map. He's not really walking. Yes, the sprite is moving, but his picture is staying the same. If I want this to be a good quality game, I really want him to be walking in the directions that he's moving. So that's what we're going to be doing today. All right, so we already know about animation. There's a green animation section down here in advanced, which we've used before. So this block is going to give us the ability to make him walk around. So what we need to do is decide, when do we want him to do those movements? So if we're thinking logically, if I move the arrow key to the right, if I press the right arrow, I want him to walk to the right. If I move it to the left, I want him to walk to the left. Up, he should walk up, and down, he should walk down. Makes a lot of sense, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the controller, and we're going to use the on button press. So I'm going to start with left. And does my character have a name? No, he just called my sprite. Okay, so we'll just leave that as my sprite. And I need to find the animation where he walks to the left. Thankfully, there's a lot of pre-made animations in here. So for the red shirt guy, if you haven't noticed it yet, I want you to notice that some of these animations, he has a shield and a sword, and some of them he doesn't. So you have to decide, which one do you want your character to be, the one with the shield or the one without the shield. So I'm going to do the without the shield one. And if you hover over it, you'll actually see the name of the description will say whether or not he has a shield, right? So I'm going to have him walking to the left for this one. And I can set his speed, remember, right here, and I can hit play to see what it looks like. So right now it's very slow. I'm probably going to want to speed that up. And you know, I might not know exactly what speed I want until he actually starts walking. 200 looks better to me, but we'll see what that looks like in the game. So now he has animation when he walks. When the left button's pressed, he should do this movement. And he does, but he only does it a couple times and then stops. That's because we need to hit the loop to turn on. So now when I check it out, I'm going to walk to the left. He walks. It looks good. I let go of the button, and he's still walking. So here's our first problem, right? We need to have a loop on when the button's pressed, but we need the animation to stop when the button's released. So there's a couple different ways you could do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab another A button press, switch it to left, and I'm going to switch pressed to released. So I need to decide, what do I want to happen when the button's released? And there are a few different ways you can do this, so you might want to decide which one you like the most. what some people will do is they'll just have stop all animation. That's one way to do it. You let go of the button, all the animations stop, right? Now, one potential problem of this is that if the timing's weird, he could end up stopping like that. He could end up stopping mid-step, which does look a little bit weird, right? So another technique that people will use is they will do the same animation, but will turn it off so that he finishes the animation, basically. So let's see what that looks like. I let go. Okay. Still not great because he kind of walked in place for a minute there. So then another thing that I've seen people do is they'll take the animation and they will delete most of the frames. Basically, make it not an animation anymore. They're essentially turning it into a still image. And they have loop off, so when the button's pressed, he'll do the walking. When the button's released, he'll just stand there. Let's see what that looks like. I'm just going to move to the right so I can see it better. So he's walking to the left, he stops. That actually looks pretty good. So of the three things we just looked at, I think this one's probably the best. But like I said, there is more than one way you can kind of do this. You have to decide what you like best. So when left button's pressed, he walks. When the left button's released, the animation stops by changing the animation to a single picture, is how we're doing it right now, because it tends to work pretty good. Okay, so now I want to do the same thing with right, up, and down. So just to make my life a little bit easier, I'm just going to duplicate it, switch this one to right, switch the animation to the one where he's walking right. I don't need to worry about changing the speed. I'm going to duplicate this. Actually, maybe I shouldn't have duplicated that one. It might have made more sense to duplicate this one, so I don't have to change as much. All right, do released and change the animation to delete the ones where he's moving. Just go back to a still frame and turn loop off. So now my left and right animations should be working. And now if I don't like the speed, I can always change it, right? If I want him to walk a little bit faster, I could make it a number less than 200, but I kind of like it the way it is right here. Now, if you are doing a side-scrolling game, right, a platformer, you'd probably want to stop with this. You wouldn't need to worry about up and down. But since we're doing a top-down game, we do need to worry about up and down. So real quickly, I know this is taking a little bit of time, and by now you guys already know where I'm going with this. But I just want to show you, for up, we want to see his back. We want him walking away from us, right? So for up, we're going to do that. And then for down, we want him walking towards the camera, towards us. And again, I'm using the ones without the shield for my program. All right, so I've got some good animation here. I've got all four directions for when the button's pressed and when the button's released. Let's play the game. Oh, do you see that? Sometimes it's a little bit buggy. Sometimes the animation's not working correctly. Try it with your game and see if you can figure out why that's happening. When is that happening? It looks like my speed is a little bit slower than I want it to be too. I probably ought to increase my speed. So right now it seems to be working, but a minute ago it was not. And here we go, it's not working again. If you haven't finished your program, go ahead and pause this video, finish yours, and see if you can figure out why it's doing this. All right, you figured it out yet? Well, I'm going to go ahead and show you. The reason it's doing this is because sometimes when you're using arrow keys, you might press a direction before you let go of the other one. So if I'm walking to the right or I'm walking to the left and I press up before I let go of left, see that? I'm pressing right and then I let go of down. What's happening is the button release is replacing the animation. So there is bugs to this. As good as this code is, it's not perfect. There are bugs to this that will happen. Now, there are ways to fix it, and I've written some pretty complicated code in the past to try to fix this. For instance, I wrote one where the animation stopped when all buttons were released. So I basically got rid of these 4 release buttons, and I replaced it with a long logic block, where what I did is I did something like this. You don't need to copy me. I'm just using it as an example. So what I did is I created a bunch of ands because I needed 4 conditions, and I joined them together. And then inside of those conditions, I used left button. Actually, no, I did it more complicated than that. It was if they're not pressed. Yeah, this was a complicated one. So what I did is I used not. So if left is not pressed and right is not pressed, and you can see how big this is getting, right? Up is not pressed and down is not pressed. So I did all 4 of these. Oop, I lost the not. So I used all 4 of these. So on game update, which is happening every frame, if left is not pressed and right is not pressed and up is not pressed and down is not pressed, then I would stop all the animations on the sprite. And I replaced these 4 blocks basically with that. So that was one way that I tried to fix this problem. So when the button's pressed, it does the animation, and the animation only stops when I let go of all 4 buttons. So let's see what that looks like. It does end up being less buggy, right? So if I switch from one finger to another, it doesn't create that problem. Now, there are still problems that can occur, though. For instance, you can have the ones where he kind of stops in a weird position, right? So that can still happen with this. So this is all different ways that you can kind of code this. But I told you guys I was going to show you extensions today, right? So let me show you the way that I would do it now that I know more about extensions. So I'm just going to save my program real quick because this isn't bad. And whenever you make big changes to your game, it's a good idea to save it just in case you end up breaking something. All right, so now I'm going to delete all this animation code that I just put for the character because we're going to do something completely different. So in the toolbox, down at the bottom where you have advanced and all that stuff, there's a button here that says extensions. We're going to go ahead and click on that. So there are a lot of extensions in MakeCode. These here that this shows you, these are the recommended extensions. These are not all of them because extensions are made by public coders like you and me. So there's a lot more that are available online that you can uncover in forums and things like that. But these are the extensions that MakeCode saw they liked enough that they decided to share with the public, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down, and there's a lot of them here. I will be posting a whole separate playlist of just extensions. So I'm going to do deep dives on almost all of these. So something to look forward to. I would definitely recommend you check those out because some of these extensions are really, really cool. Okay, so the extension we're going to look at today is for character animation, and it's the one that looks like this. Arcade Character Animations. I love this extension because it does basically the same stuff we were just trying to do, but it does it in a way that's a little bit easier and uses less code. So with all these extensions, by the way, if you're not sure what they do, you can click on the Learn More button, and it will tell you more about the extension. So sometimes if it's a brand new extension, you might want to click on that Learn More button so you can see stuff about how it works. It might give instructions or information. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on this extension, and once I do, it adds it to the toolbox. So in the toolbox now, there's a new section that says character that wasn't there before. This is the extension that we just downloaded. So if I click on this character extension, these are the blocks that it comes with. You'll notice it looks a lot like the regular animation blocks, right? So there is something new, though, is that the animation blocks now have a condition in them where it says when. So it tells us when to do the animation. Works really, really well. And then we have this one here. So this one loops, right? And this one just says run, so it only happens one time. That's the difference between these two. This one comes with a loop. This one only does it once. Okay, then we have some of these where we can throw them in regular conditions, and we got some other fun stuff here. So honestly, most of the stuff down here I don't use very often, but you could use these for if it's moving or if it's not moving, stuff like that, right? The main thing I want to show you guys is this part. So to do what I was just doing with the character animation, all I have to do is grab this block. Let's move this one out of the way so it's not blocking anything. And you can actually put this in the on start. So this would be put in your program the same time you create the character, right? So I'm creating the character, and I want to do the same thing I was doing before. So I'm going to do an animation for when he's walking left. I'm going to set it to 200. And you'll notice it updated that number when I did that. And now I need to put, when do I want it to do this animation? All right, now it says not moving. There's one for moving and there's one for not moving. So if it's a real general animation, sometimes you just want to do it when it's moving and it doesn't matter what direction. But in this case, direction does matter. So I want to do, we have moving up, moving down, moving right, moving left. There's also animations for just facing a certain direction. There's also animations for when it hits walls in certain directions. That's pretty cool. So if you think about the Mario game we were building before, you could have an animation for when it hits a wall up above it. So when Mario punches the block, you could use this and choose that one, right? So we're just worried about moving for this video. So when he's moving left, we want him to use this animation. Now I'm going to duplicate this block and switch up the animation. When he's moving right, we're going to use moving right. When he's moving up, we're going to use the one where he's walking away from the camera. And when he's moving down, we're going to use the one where he's walking towards the camera. And that's it. Those 4 blocks is all you need to do what we were just coding and taking a lot more time doing. So let's see how it actually plays out. Walking to the right, walking to the left, walking down. First, you're going to notice that we're not having that bug we were having before. It's no longer happening. Now, you do still have the situation where he stops with his feet in front of him sometimes, right? But the rest of the bugs aren't happening. That's the only thing. Now, if you wanted to fix that, you could fix that in a completely separate way. You could still do the on button release, but actually, no, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that because that'll cause a bug. I would just live with it, honestly. This is my game. I would just live with it. It looks good, and it didn't take much work. It took 4 blocks, and that's it. Actually, I know what you could do. You could put in here a when not moving, right? So when he's not moving, maybe you just want him to face the camera, and then you can get rid of these other ones. Or sometimes what some games do is when the character's not moving, they'll just kind of bob in place. So maybe you want to do something like that. Maybe you want to duplicate this and change the picture slightly so he bobs in place. Maybe I make an edit where he moves his body up and down just a little bit. What would that look like? Yeah, there we go. I got a bobbing in place motion there. And I can switch that for when he's not moving. So he bobs in place when he's staying still, or he walks around. That's pretty professional. See how quickly I made that too? I got a pretty professional animation here, and it didn't take much time at all. Okay, so that's the real benefit of extensions, is the fact that you can make some really good looking code, some really good looking programs without doing a lot of work. So as I mentioned, I will be making a series on these extensions here over the next several days because there's a lot of them. I'm going to be going over the extensions that are in the recommended section, but I'm also going to be showing you some of my favorite extensions that are not in here. Extensions that you can get from forums and other places. Some extensions that I've used and that my students have used and really liked. So we're going to be doing a deep dive on these extensions and more in the next videos. I hope you stick around. If you learned something new today, please click that like button. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. And don't forget to tell your friends and family about this channel so that they can build some fun games too. And as always, if you build anything that you want to share with me, just put it in the comments. And don't forget to also share your games with your friends and family. All right, I'll see you guys later.